and made of silk and steel by Ah Marvel No Get Off My Sheets. Chapter 1. Jessica sighed. Peter. Peter gave her his most pathetic stare, and she huffed and looked up into the cloudy gray skies. Taking a deep breath, she said, Buddy, she has a collar on. We can't keep her. Someone is probably missing her right now. His lower lip trembled, but Peter nodded bravely. Oh my god, this sucks. Don't do this to me, kid. Okay, he muttered, rubbing at his face. We're gonna make sure she gets home though, right? Right, she agreed firmly, glancing at the pit bull, who was leaning against Peter's side with an expression of complete and perfect adoration despite the unfocused stare of her eyes. Geez, neither of you are making this easy on me, are you? While we're there, we're gonna have a conversation with her owner about how dangerous it is for a disabled animal in the city. She felt pretty confident that unlike Matt, the dog didn't have super senses. It was astonishing that she hasn't been hit by a car. Then again, Jessica was guessing she hadn't been loose that long. She looked relatively neat, a bit skinny, but not shockingly so. Hey girl, she cooed, cautious despite Peter's assertion that she didn't bite. Gently and slowly reaching out, Jessica turned over the little bone-shaped green tag on her collar, blinking in surprise when she realized that the address given for the owner was only the next block over. She smirked. Your friend's name is Tinkerbell. Peter wrinkled his nose and Jessica laughed. The dog's ears lifted at the sound. She was pretty cute. Jessica might actually consider getting him a pet, maybe a cat though. Pit bulls were big dogs, and she wasn't sure it was a good idea to let a 7-year-old handle one. Peter and Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell didn't seem to object to Jessica picking her up and carrying her. They didn't have a leash to lead her on, and she had no idea how well a blind dog could navigate a busy city street. Hell, she had no real idea how well a blind human could navigate a city street. She had the feeling Matt was not a good metric to judge by. The building was one of the nicer places in Hell's Kitchen, and a bored-looking white teenage boy with blonde dreads answered the door. Yeah? Hey, yeah, my son found your dog over in the schoolyard on the next street, Jessica said with as much politeness as she could muster. You might want to keep her leashed up. This city is dangerous for any dog, but a blind dog who doesn't know where she is will be in even more danger. Luckily, she was too scared to get far. The teenager made no move to Tinkerbell or let her inside. Oh yeah, that Tink? She didn't run away. Okay, said Jessica, becoming more and more puzzled. You can keep her, the teenager said with a shrug and a little sneer. My stupid sister brought her from this dude in Jersey. Little Twit couldn't tell she was blind until she brought her home. Kara should have remembered to take the damn tag off her before she let her go. And then the door slammed shut again. Peter stared at the closed door in stunned silence. I don't understand, he said in a tiny voice. Jess? Jessica heard a horrible loud roaring in her ears. They threw her away. They threw a helpless animal away because of something she couldn't possibly be able to fix or control. A sudden vision appeared before her eyes of a little boy with dark hair and a small white face, waiting for a mother that would never claim him. She could see this child with sharp, painful clarity, the benefit or hazard of examining dozens of his photographs, and the boy standing next to her only made it seem more real. It gave her a terrible sick feeling in the pit of her stomach, and the thought of that child standing abandoned in his Catholic orphanage was what made Jessica march back down the street. Come on, she told her son, still watching her anxiously. We have to go to the pet store. Your dog is going to need a leash, a bowl, and a new tag. And a new name? Peter chirped, hopping a little to catch up with her, one hand latched onto the pocket of her jacket. Right, Jess? What, you don't like Tinkerbell? She teased. Peter pouted, then said rather diplomatically, in her opinion, "It's kind of a silly name, don't you think?" "It is," she agreed. "So what are you going to call her instead?" There was a thoughtful pause, then Peter said, "Tessa." "Tessa?" Jessica repeated, bemused. "All right." Having acquired a new name tag, complete with her new name, a bowl, a few toys, and a new leash, Jessica has the slightly terrifying experience of walking a blind dog through a crowded street. Tessa was an anxious dog on the ground and tended to hold herself back against Jessica's legs. Jessica doubted the dog had ears as good as Matt's, but surely they still worked, right? "Right," she said, snapping her fingers to the dog's right side, gently pulling the leash as the three of them turned at the corner. As they came to a curb, she snapped her fingers again, raising the pitch of her voice up. It took patience and repetition, but Tessa seemed to be learning what her mistress was attempting to communicate. By the time they got back to the apartment, Jessica even felt safe enough to hand Peter the leash and let him lead her around the interior. "Don't let her off the leash yet, buddy. She could hurt herself by accident." She waited until Peter was safely tucked in bed for the night before calling Matt. "Murdock, do you have any idea what your son did today?" "Wow, I just had a serious flashback to 1996, Matt said, amused. "Only the son in question was me. What's the matter?" "I picked up Peter from school. Would you like to know what I found him doing?" she said, fox sweetly. Pained, Matt said, "Please don't tell me he was smoking, because then my old man will really be having a laugh." "I found him feeding a dog, Matthew, and he really, really wanted to take the dog home. Would you like to know why? 'Cause she's blind, Matt. The dog is blind." "Oh God, he didn't," Matt breathed, stomach dropping. "Did he get hurt?" Foggy stared at Matt in concern from across the room. "No, actually," Jessica's voice softened. "She's pretty sweet. He named her Tessa." "I'm sorry, I could swear you just said named," Matt said, and whatever his face was doing made Foggy and Karen start cackling. "You're letting him keep a blind dog?" "Well, I tried giving the blind dog back to her owner, but the owner's brother was nice enough to inform me that the blind part was the reason they decided to dump a helpless animal on the street," she said tightly. "Son of a bitch," Matt growled, taking a deep breath to calm himself down. "Yeah, that was my reaction," she said quietly, without going into her sudden flash of maternal grief for the young boy Matt Murdock used to be. "Only I had a 7-year-old standing next to me who couldn't understand why someone would do that." Sighing heavily, Matt rubbed a hand over his 5 o'clock shadow. "Blind animals aren't like blind people, Jess," he said finally. "They don't really understand what's happened to them, and it can make them aggressive, especially predator-type animals like dogs and cats. She could bite him by accident, just because her instincts tell her to, and she can't visually identify him." "That's the thing. I think she might have been born this way," she said, lighting her feet onto the sofa. "She's a little anxious walking around in a crowd, but she calms down a lot indoors. And if she was gonna bite him, wouldn't she have done it in the very beginning?" "I suppose," he said slowly, still not happy that Peter might have gotten himself hurt. Jessica glanced at Tessa, obediently laying in her doggy bed, though she was clearly listening to her voice, tail thumping slowly. She tapped the sofa next to her, lifting her voice to a higher, sweeter tone. "Tessa, up." Though her ears lifted at the sound of her name, in just a few hours, she definitely grasped that Tessa was, "Hey, you." Tessa still looked confused. It took just 2 more attempts to get her to obey. Good girl, Tessa." To Matt, she said, "Pete's been really keen on teaching her up, down, left, and right." She's already figured out her name. Grimly, Matt replied, I would make sure that stop, sit, and lay is on that list, especially if you really plan to let him keep her. Jessica shrugged. Might as well. I'll get a dog bed for the office and she can stay at work with me when he isn't home. He scoffed. You don't even like dogs. Jessica scratched Tessa behind the ears, who let out a contented sigh and rested her large head on Jess's knee. I don't know. This one's growing on me. Group chat. Peter Parker Protection Squad. Mods. Foggy Bear, Care Bear. Members. Colleen is fantastic. Dragon Fister. I'm not Daredevil. Jess for success. Mr. Cage. Save me Claire. Care Bear. You got him a dog? You bitch. Jess for success. It's a girl dog, yeah. Foggy Bear. Karen had very strong plans for Pete this Xmas, and I think you just stomped them out. Jess for success. To be fair, he got himself a dog. I was just a sucker who said yes. Probably because Matt can't see the face he makes when he wants something. Foggy Bear. It definitely still works on him. He says Peter's voice hits the dad receptors just right. It's impossible to say no to him. Dragon Fister. Can we have a pic? Colleen is fantastic. Photo, photo, photo. Save me Claire. Come on, Jones. Give the masses what they want. Photo attachment sent by Jess for success. The first picture is Peter, mouth tightly closed, letting Tessa lick gravy off his face, and the second shows him laying down on the carpet in Jessica's living room, half asleep with his new best friend on his chest. Care Bear, dead. I have died. I am in heaven. Mr. Cage, Jesus, they're cute. Save me, Claire. Oh my God, I want 10. Mr. Cage. Please tell me you mean dogs. Claire, 10 dogs, right? Dragon Fister. I wouldn't mind 10 kids. Kids are fun. Colleen is fantastic. Absolutely not. Care Bear. Matt can have 10 children, but only if they're Jessica's. Jess for success. Excuse me? I didn't agree to this. Foggy Bear. Matt says he didn't either. Care Bear. Yeah, but come on. You can't argue with the results, guys. Save me, Claire. You know I have to admit, she's got you there, kids. Dragon Fister. Gasp! 9 more Peters? Foggy Bear. Matt just spit beer down his shirt. He said, and I quote, can we raise the first child before we move on to 2 through 10? Shit, I think he's choking now, or laughing. I can't tell. The dog really did grow on her. Peter was diligent and careful with her training, mindful of his mother's warning that leaving Tessa unguided could result in her getting hurt or hurting herself by accident. He spent the whole weekend repeating circuits of the apartment with her, making sure she knew where to expect things. They worked on right, left, up, and down, as well as the stop, sit, and lay down Matt insisted on. Tessa mostly had to sit and lay down parts trained into her already. There was some initial uncertainty about where lay down meant, but that was learned with patience and time. Taking her for a walk was still a minor test of nerves and observational skills, but like most things, repetition brought ease. She brought Tessa when she brought Peter back to school Monday morning, and he found it a little difficult to say goodbye. Bye, girl, he whispered sadly after Ned had already been introduced and Jess reminded them that the first period would start soon. Be good for Jess. Ah, buddy, Jess sighed, looking at that sad little face. Was the one thing that didn't get easier with repetition. She'll be with me any time you want to see her. We're only a few blocks away. Peter nodded, still looking glum, but raised his arms for a hug. Jessica maybe squeezed him a little harder than usual, because he let out a surprised huff and gave her an odd look when she released him. Bye, Jess. Love you. Love you too, kid. She took a meandering route back home, stopping at a cafe for a coffee and a scone. Jessica sort of accidentally on purpose dropped some of the scone right in front of Tessa for her to eat off the ground as she wandered back into the office. There was a dude standing there in front of Alias's door. When they arrived on the right floor and he whirled around at the sound of the elevator door opening, Jesus, finally! He sighed, sagging into the wall. The sign said you were supposed to be here 15 minutes ago. Jessica shrugged, unapologetic. Took the scenic route. Can I help you? Yes, and you need to hurry, the man said fervently. He took Trish. She stopped in her tracks, giving Tessa a small fright as she paused without giving her any signals. Look, she growled furiously. I don't know who the hell you are or why you give a shit, but have no idea what Trish got herself into, and I can't think of anything I want less than get involved with whatever she's doing. I'm a friend of your sister's, Eric Gelden? Eric gave her a strange look. She never actually got a hold of you, did she? He murmured. You already have something to do with this, Jones. I thought she warned you last time. The point? Jessica barked, crossing her arms. Quickly. Presumably, if this dude was a friend of Trish's, he was fully aware of how dangerous it was to let her patience wear it out. Salinger hunts people like us, he said simply, making an expansive gesture between them. Tracks them, captures them, and murders them. Like us? Jessica repeated dryly. Alcoholics, brunettes, what? And then he said the one thing that could have gotten her attention. People with powers, he said with a small, helpless shrug. You, me, Trish. But Jessica's brain was going Matt, Luke, Danny. Still has nothing to do with me, she said with a tight smile. I didn't piss this whack job off. Quietly desperate, he said, he's a serial killer, and you're what he likes to kill, Jones. You're one of the most famous and easily accessible gifted people in the whole city. Suddenly, Malcolm's warning that Trish's bad guy went after the family and friends made much more sense. He had to. He was hunting the ultimate prey, the predator that lived at the very top of the food chain. Humans with human intelligence and human cunning, but with superhuman powers. Of course, he had to target their friends and family unless their abilities were extremely useless or extremely situational. There was no other way he could possibly beat them. There was a tension headache building between her eyes, and her mind was still repeating Matt, Luke, Danny like a broken freaking record, because Jessica Jones might be the most easily accessible person with powers in this part of town. But the most well-known was Daredevil, but Daredevil had gone dark, because his son needed him more. And that, Jessica realized, was what was probably saving Matt's life right now. She couldn't shield Peter from this man because she was already his target. Just by sheer virtue of being herself, her best solution was to put a stop to him, and quickly. Saving Trish would be a nice bonus to that. But what was really needed to do was keep Salinger's attention focused on the superhumans he already knew about, so that he wouldn't start hunting down more. Jessica sighed loudly, and Eric stared at her in surprised terror as she led Tessa into the office with her cutesy baby voice commands before sitting down at her desk. Trish is like super fucked or whatever, but I have to make a phone call before we get started on this bullshit. Eric snorted, staring at her in disbelief and shaking his head as he watched Jessica holding her phone to her ear. Yeah, you got something more important to do than saving your sister's life? Yeah, she drawled lazily, saving my son's. Watching people freak out about that would probably never get old, Jessica decided. Yeah, hi. No, the drop-off was fine. I mean, he obviously didn't want to leave her, but hey, listen, this ain't actually a social call. She glanced at Gelden and chewed her lower lip, quickly staring back down at the scratched-up surface of her desk. Her stomach hurt. Her head hurt. She quickly turned away from Gelden and found herself staring out the window. Murdock, I might not be able to take Peter back for a while. Eric didn't hear the reply on the other end, but Jessica heard it just fine. Okay. She hated how soft and understanding he was. It made her head hurt more. Is this a sobriety issue? Did you have a slip-up? Can I help? No, she hated Trish. She hated Eric. She hated her mother. She hated herself. She really hated Salinger. She hated every single reason she had to make this call in the first place. No, Murdock, I need him to stay with you. I need you to keep a really close eye on him. No goddamn blind jokes out of you. She swallowed through the angry tears. She could feel trying to build. I really need for you to promise me that you aren't going to let him out of range, okay? Matt stood from his chair and gestured frantically at Foggy. Just, you're seriously scaring the shit out of me. Tell me what's going on here. Foggy's chair made a horrendous sound as he bolted up from the seat. On the phone, he heard the wet catch in her breathing and whispered, Jess, please don't cry. I'm not, she snarled back, but Matt knew her well enough to know when she wanted to. God damn it. Maud issued invitation to group. Peter Parker Protection Squad. Accepted. User added to group. Care Bear. Need a favor. Big favor. Penny and dime. End of chapter.